maybe just play a tune or something like that, and then kind of go from there.
Whole pack.
Oh, another big secret I have is, well, it's not really a secret. I play Frank Daniels fiddles, and that makes everything easier.
Well, thank you, sir.
He's a great builder, and you know, I'm sure all of you have been by his booth already and seen his stuff.
Several times.
I used to play really old fiddles. You know, in fact, I have one that's made in 1914, and by a German fiddle maker, and I've played that all my life, and it's a great fiddle, and I still love it, but it just doesn't have the attack and stuff that Frank has. He's really onto something in his building, and so anyways, I just thought I'd give him that plug because it's true. I don't play anybody else's fiddles now. Play do something like, I don't know, what, Cherokee Shuffle maybe? Something like that. One, two, three. Bunch of improvising and stuff.
Hey, question on your accents. I mean, I can really hear them. You can just feel that all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get that in your head to where you're?
I don't know. I really like to mess with timing, and most everything I do is ad lib. I mean, I know a few melodies actually, you know, the right way on how to play them. The rest of the time, it's just, you know, I'm familiar with the melody, and so I just kind of ad lib along and just kind of, I try to think ahead, you know, at least, you know, probably 4 or 5 measures as to where I'm going to go with it. And every once in a while, I'll start heading towards that idea and then fail as far as being able to get to where I thought I was going to go. And so it'll just turn into something different. You know, I'll have to think real quick and make something different out of it, you know. That's like the beauty of making a mistake, you know, in live music, is sometimes you learn some of your best, you know, stuff by doing that. You go, hey, that wasn't on purpose, but kind of liked it, you know, so I think I'll try it again. And so that's, as far as the accents and stuff go, that's all timing. I mean, that's like a big timing thing. And as far as like, I like to push a beat, and I like to put licks that maybe everybody else would play, you know, averagely, like say other average fiddle players or something, play these licks according to the timing in a certain way. And I like to put them in a little different spot, maybe a little bit ahead of where everybody else would put them, or a little bit behind, depending on the type of, you know, notes
you're waiting for that note.
Yeah, instead of, I mean, it just kind of helps you. You got to think outside the box really creatively to get those accents really to pop, you know. And probably the best guy in the world at it is Stuart Duncan. And if you ever listen to his playing, in fact, if everybody has their favorites and everything, and my favorites are like Scotty Stoneman and Benny Martin and Kenny Baker and Bob. I really love Bobby Hicks's playing and all the older guys, the older generation. But if you listen to Stuart, as far as what he plays nowadays, he is like the master of messing with the timing. And I didn't steal like his ideas. I don't sit down and learn like Stuart Duncan solos or anything like that, but just listening to him helps you think outside the box, because you'll hear it and you'll go, hey man, that was that lick that I play in this song, but he didn't put it nowhere near where I would have put it. And so just listening a lot is like a huge key for learning an instrument, I think. It's like not copying. I mean, you don't want to become a clone of somebody, but if you listen to what they do, then you can kind of think about it in that manner. I mean, if that makes sense. But as far as popping those accents and stuff, it's really a dynamic thing. And also, I really, I'm different than a lot of guys. I mean, there's a lot of players now doing the real light touch thing where they're bouncing the bow, and that's how they play almost all their leads, and that stuff is great. But I've never really been able to do that really well, so I make up for it by just bearing down, and I'll actually push the hair into the stick. I mean, you'll see me a lot of times. I'll have the hair is right up against the stick.
You use a lot of bow pressure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if I'm playing a real sweet tune, unless I want to fatten up and thicken up the tone, I might push the stick through the hair. But on the faster stuff, you notice a lot if you watch me very close is, I'm really putting some punch on there, and a lot of people are afraid to do that, but I've been doing it for years, and I've never hurt a fiddle by doing it.
See, you've gone through a lot of hairs, dude.
Yeah, I go through a lot of bow hair, and I tend to break it on one side, on this side here, because another thing, kind of more to where your question was about playing back and forth between the fingerboard and the bridge, is I'll actually play on the edge to get a thinner tone, and it also helps to move things along a little bit quicker. And so a lot of times you'll see, after I've gone through a bow, it'll be about 3/4 or half the way, just on one side. Yeah, because I'm playing more at an edge, and on a slower song I'll go back to flat and thicken everything up a little bit. But it's just things that you do just by playing for a long time. It's not something I've really thought about.
Yeah,
it just happens.
Notice that one note that you play on that Cherokee Shuffle there, after da 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 da, instead of going right to the note, you went da 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 da.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
Yeah.
The melody just goes right to the note. That's just a little.
Yeah, I guess the melody would be. And I just mess with it a little bit.
Those things make the timing and the punches more revealed too, I think.
Yeah. So
that's I think the thing that I noticed with his style. I mean, it's just got you. It pulls you along more than.
Well, it's just one of them things. I mean, everybody's different and everybody plays different. It's like if you can glean anything off of anybody, everybody has something to offer. But I don't know. I think the reason why I have the style that I do is more or less out of defense as a player. Just because growing up, I mean, I took classical lessons and stuff. I started when I was 3 years old, and I did the Suzuki program for a couple of years. But I quit that when I was like 5, and then just with his help. This is my dad, Glenn, by the way. And with his help and my own guide, just kind of like, I'm pretty unorthodox as a player, I would say. I mean, if I look at everybody else, the way that they play, I mean, I hold my bow wrong. according to most people, you know. I mean, I hold it with the thumb right underneath the frog, and you're supposed to hold it like that. And I can do that, but I just can't get the attack that I want by doing that. So I hold it under the frog so I can really push into the stick. And you know, you can play. Actually, I can play a little bit faster if I hold the bow like this, you know, rather than this. But I can still play pretty fast like that, you know, and then I get the attack and stuff. So, you know, things like that, and, you know, this whole left hand of mine. I mean, I'm doing that a lot, changing back and forth, and then if you ever see me shift positions, it has nothing to do with any classical training at all. So it's, you know, it's just, like I said, it's kind of the way I play is more out of just starting off a little bit wrong and then getting good at that and then just not changing it. You know what I mean? So I don't really, you know, when I was teaching and stuff like that, I don't have a problem with, like, if somebody has something that for them it makes it easier to do, as long as it's not something that's going to keep them from playing better later. I don't even say anything about it, you know, because I might mention it to them if they decide to work on it, you know, then great. But otherwise, you know, I think everybody's hands are different. Man, if you've ever seen Michael Cleveland, that beats all I ever seen. I mean, he has his playing. It's you look at him when he plays, and it looks like what he does should be impossible. You know, I mean, his chop that he gets. I mean, he gets that real bitey chop when he chunks, but he's doing it like this. I mean, he just, and then he's holding his bow almost with a fist. So I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't look right, and it just.
But it works.
But it works, you know, and he's great.
He doesn't know he's not supposed to be able to do that.
And that's the whole thing. It's a mind thing, yeah. So I mean,
somebody had to show you.
There's more than one way to skin a cat, you know, as the saying goes.
But both you and he are really rhythmic players, I would say, right? And Casey.
Yeah, Casey is a great rhythmic player. He does a lot of that chopping and stuff. He's got that really cool, funky chop thing that he does all the time.
And
I don't know.
shoes are so special.
I think it's just, you know, it's
He always
just,
wears those red shoes.
yeah. I think it's just one of them things where everybody has a niche, you know, and that's what I try to have as a player. I don't try to copy anybody else. Once in a while, I mean, if I get on a Bobby Hicks kick, and I've been on that lately, it's like all of a sudden.
That's not bad, though.
All of a sudden, I'll be playing a bunch of those, you know. You know, that kind of stuff. And you'll probably hear me do that today, I'm sure. Because I've been on this big kick about it. It just feels good to play it to me, you know. But I never really actually sat down and learned those licks. I did one, kind of. My newest, the one I had to learn was, I forget now. He uses it on a couple of different tunes, but it's that one that goes something like that. That's not in tune, but that's a tough lick, you know. And I thought I couldn't hear it how he was doing it, and sat down and tried to actually figure it out, and I couldn't hear all the ascending and descending double stops, so I had to sit down and actually.
I was going to say that's what you're playing there is all predominantly double stops all the way through.
Mm-hmm. That's what Bobby Hicks is famous for.
Really?
Yeah.
Almost everything is a double.
He's
stop.
the man.
Triple stop.
Yeah, and triple
There's a lot
stops.
of that.
I mean, yeah, I mean he'll. You know, you can get a triple stop by doing that. So. I don't know.
What's that take? Lots of bow pressure, huh?
Well, I mean, I have to put lots of bow pressure into it, but it's also where you place it. I mean, you can't actually play 3 notes at the same time unless you push that middle note down below them, you know.
So you get one ring in and...
Yeah, I kind of actually play 'em more like... I actually fake people's ears into believing that it's a triple stop. I mean, really. I mean, instead of pushing so hard, I'll actually play it like this. Let's see. You know, I'll actually hit that first one and let it kind of ring, and then everybody
follow up with a double stop.
It's hard to play those in tune a lot of times because the middle string,
You stretch too
you're
much.
pushing harder than you are the 2 outside strings, and so you're bringing it flat or sharp.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I mean, anytime you change the string, you know, height, changing the pitch. I mean, that's basically what mashing down on the fingerboard does to the notes.
Yeah, well, Bobby's doing it on his 5-string too, and that, a little closer spacing.
Yeah, a little closer strings together, absolutely.
Probably a flatter bridge.
Yeah, and I like to use. I don't use a real round bridge. I'm kind of in between, I like to have some separation for like, that real fast stuff, so I don't get a bunch of hairy notes in there, But so I use a little curve to it, but not as round as some guys. Some guys use a real round bridge, and if you do that, I mean, it's more of a classical type setup. You get that real sweet tone doing that.
Do another one for us. Want to?
Sure. How about you want to hear something kind of fast or slow or what?
That's something pretty.
All right. How about let's do Maiden's Prayer. That's the good old standby.
Right there?
Yeah, right there. I haven't played this in a long time. Yeah, the way I learned a lot of those double stops, I actually kind of have a program for that. Now, unfortunately, I didn't bring any paperwork on it, but before I came up with this program in order to kind of, figure out all the double stops and everything, I just really would sit for, when I practiced, when I was just sitting around practicing at the house, instead of learning fiddle tunes. I hardly know any fiddle tunes. I really don't. I play mostly stuff. I like to ad lib, and I like to back up a vocalist, or play a break, because I'm a vocalist, so I'll play a break on my own songs, instead of learning fiddle tunes. I'm not a big fan of fiddle tunes. I mean, it's fun to play them sometimes, or in a jam or something like that. It's cool, but Just personally, I'm not really interested that much in it. So instead of learning an actual tune when I was sitting around practicing or working on technique in particular, I would just sit around and just improvise, just ad-lib stuff, you know. It didn't matter, just, you know, just stuff that didn't make any sense, you know. Just doing, you know, different things like that, just moving around on the fingerboard, trying to find stuff. And then every once in a while I'd go up the neck and play something and it wouldn't work, you know, but I'd find that one that it would work, you know, and I just kept doing that. And over a period of years, I just kind of developed a lot of those, you know, a lot of the, let's see. You know, just different things, you know, trying to do those little finger twisters, you know, trying to move that stuff all around, descending and ascending, you know, making it all happen. And so, but when I went to college, I kind of figured out a good program to actually learn those double stops. And it'd take a minute to explain, and it's kind of hard to understand at first, but basically all you're doing is, what I would do is I would pick a key, say, but in fact, that's probably not a good way to put it if you say key, but like if I picked a chord of G, that's the most accessible fiddle chord probably, you know, at least, you know, just at first, we'll just use that for an example, the key of G, but actually instead of thinking it as a key, you think of it as a chord. And what I would do is play the lowest two notes possible in a G chord as a double stop on the fiddle. Then I would find the next chronological one to play that worked with a G chord, not necessarily in the key of G. And I would learn it as a scale. And so what I would do is I would just, you know, just trial and error and deduct what things are going to work and what things aren't. The first one obviously is that open G and D. That's your first double stop. Okay. Chronologically, that's the lowest two notes that you can play
and still
in the
be
chord
in a G
of G.
chord.
Yeah. And so don't think about it like a key. You have to think about it like a chord. So now see that actually kind of works because what it is, it's a suspension. You're still playing the D note without the G, and so that, and then you have the one. Go ahead and play that chord. No, just the G chord. If you played that chord on the guitar, that would be like a G add 9, which means, you know, you're creating a suspension. And some guys creatively think it's cool to end the whole song on that chord on the guitar, and I happen to think it's cool too. But I guess what happens is, you know, if I play those two lowest notes with that G, that obviously works. That's an obvious G double stop. Now, if I go to this one, the next chronological one is to place my one finger on the G string, and then leave that D open to see if that's going to work as a double stop. Well, it kind of works because it's a suspension, but I kind of like to, you know, find the actual next double stop in G. But what I've done by trying it was figured out that, man, that kind of does sound neat sometimes, and in a certain situation it would work, you know. And then you could resolve it, you know. So the next one would be putting your two finger on the G string and an open D. That's a G double stop. And you use your ears to do this kind of thing, and it helps if you have a guitar player or something handy, you know, or a piano or anything. So far you have two. So you've got, and then you just keep going through the next, all the way up the neck. And I usually try to learn them in first position. But then what I would do is actually practice them in a scale. And that scale, after I got them all figured out, all the double stops that would work with the chord of G, then it would sound like something like this. Like that.
Being in the first position.
Being in just the first position. At first, if you go up the neck, then you start to lose touch with what pitch is, because, you know, if you're not real comfortable going up the neck, you'll get off a little bit. But if you have that guitar there, I mean, it helps keep your ear focused as far as what's in tune. So that's what I would do, and then I would try it in the key of A. So we'll go to the key of A, or I'm sorry, the chord of A, and so your first A note on the fiddle is the one on the G string, right? And then if you parallel that across just like you did on the G double stops, you just put your one finger on both. And so that's the first accessible double stop that makes sense in the A chord. You know? And I know it takes a long time to explain, but you kind of getting the point of it, maybe. But so the way I would learn that, see, I don't know if I can even do this anymore. It's been so long. And for some reason, I can go up. And in college, I had to learn them up and down real fast. And for some reason, in my mind, I can go up easy, but going down is the tough part.
Well, one quick question. Back on that, when you played that first position, that was nothing but G and D.
Yeah.
All the way through, you didn't. Okay.
No, G and D notes. Are you thinking about notes?
Well, I'm thinking about the notes in a G chord.
Yeah. Don't think about that, because
Okay.
what you're doing, if you analyze it from a technical standpoint, I mean, I'm just telling you how I learned it, like ear training, and the reason why I can hear these things without thinking about them is because I'm using my ear instead of my mind. I'm doing what to me sounds good rather than what makes sense. You know what I'm saying? So if you think about notes, then you're defeating the whole purpose of the exercise. What you need to do is think about the sound of it. And that way, by trial and error, you discover double stops in that chord that you might not have played before. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does.
I mean, like, for example...
I mean, do that run in first position again.
Yeah, okay. So it's if I figure this out, I guess, let me explain it like this. When I figure out all that scale, and then I go all the way up and back down, along the way I'm actually hitting different double stops and basically discovering double stops that are going to work with that chord, and especially in that key. You know, even though I'm just trying to concentrate on learning those. I mean, it's kind of like it's just an exercise is all it is, you know, and just learning how to play double stop. So, I mean, again, the first position G double stops would be... You know, that's that. And you got to really try to play them in tune, although I didn't really. But along the way, you know, I discovered this double stop.
It's an energy. It puts energy into the feel of the music.
And although you can't, you know, dwell on those things, you have to resolve those double stops. And you resolve them back to those plain double stop chords. Is this making sense to everybody? That double stop exercise? I mean, it's totally like an ear thing, and I actually have it all typed out so you can read it, and it makes a lot more sense because I thought about what I was going to say longer. But, I mean, that's a really good exercise. If you do it in A, let's see, I got to remember what A is. Probably grab that one. So, let's see. Yeah, there's all the first position A double stops that you can play.
Wow.
That's every possibility.
Sitting down and thinking them all out.
Yeah, I mean that's every
Because that's
possible.
a good question. He said, well, how do you know where all those are at?
I mean, that's every possible combination in that A chord that you can play. That is an actual A chord.
Which puts you in pretty good shape to play backup for somebody.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so, but I come from the other side of the fence. I mean, I really try not to think too hard about it. I don't analyze stuff. Because I feel that, I mean, I know theory, you know, too. But I feel like if I analyze it too much, then I'm put in a box. I'm putting myself in a box because I'm thinking technically that I have to play these two notes around this chord.
Yeah.
Instead of saying I can play anything I want. It's all legal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It sounds like you want to hear it more so you can have better feel in given situations.
Exactly. And depending on the energy of the song. Like if it's a real driving grass tune, you know. You know, I'll play those kind of double stops with the parallel fifths. By itself, it's not that pretty. You know what I mean? But if you play them in context,
like Someone Took My Place with You, Flat and Strug song.
Play that in the A, would you?
In A?
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so that feel would be more the way I like to put it is it's more ugly, it's more raw, and sometimes ugly can be really cool, you know what I mean? It puts energy in it. So that feel, I would use different double stops than if I played, a calmer feel. So this is someone took my place with you, like what it would be, like how maybe I would play it. Yeah, never mind. I had to think of how it went. That would be like the break I would play at that speed with that energy. Now, just for example, we'll use that same song and we'll play it like it was a really pretty love song, okay? So, maybe we will. Let's see. So I changed all the double stops according to the energy of the song. And that just comes over time practicing. You can't really...
If you go to college and study theory, they tell you, parallel fifths are out of the question.
Yeah.
You never play parallel fifths. And in quartet singing, you never sing parallel fifths.
But bluegrass, that's what it's all about.
Bluegrass, it's in there everywhere.
I play as many as I possibly can all the time.
Just to irritate your professor.
Yeah, just to be doing it, Because that's the whole thing. I personally didn't. I love classical music, but I personally didn't care for playing it because it was so, you had to do it that way. That was it. There was no freedom about it at all. And so I like to do things my way, as far as when it comes to music. I like to do what I think sounds good, and hopefully other people think it sounds good too. If everybody else didn't think it sounded good, I might have to change my mind a little bit.
Yeah, if you start getting looks.
Yeah, but it just comes with.
I've heard you play some notes that didn't sound good.
I do it. I'm sure I'll do it today. I'm sure I've already done it.
One other question from a standpoint, she's played about a school year and I've had about a year and a half of lessons. That ear training, is it learned, is it natural? It's learned.
Ear training?
Yeah, what can speed it along? What are you trying,
Well, you can learn it. It helps if you have a big musical background, for some reason. All the students I had just were quicker about learning how to play by ear. Some of them, I would teach like 30 students a week. So that gives you a pretty big gamut of how people learn. And, I had all kinds of different kinds of students. And some of them were just like trying to read notes and stuff, and they just hated every minute of it. They just frustrated them, and they didn't even practice at all. It wasn't fun to them. But when I started teaching them ear training and showed them how to learn by ear, they got it. They just instantly, it was like, good, I don't have to look at a book. In their mind, it was like, man, I look at books all day at school, and I don't like that either.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing this, it's kind of like I get some freedom to do things my way. Now, on the other hand, there's some people out there that are much better off reading notes and just memorizing things just because they can't predict chords. In fact, I knew this classical violinist. She was playing like for the Dallas Symphony or something, and she was a monster. One of the most incredible violinists I've ever heard, and she could not improvise. And I never understood that because it's like, to be that great at your instrument and not be able to play any notes at all without looking at a page amazes me, But she was amazed with what I could do, and I couldn't read music, you know. So,
well, and along with that same thing, I guess my question is more, the instrument doesn't have frets.
Right.
So to hear those tones. I mean, not even so much playing. Even if you read music, what speeds that along? You know what I mean? If she plays a scale, we're gonna hear some,
It helps if you have some kind of an instrument
to match it with.
to play against.
Keep you in line.
If you practice by yourself and you have no music going on, chances are you're going to learn how to play out of tune really good.
Because it sounds, after hearing it enough, it sounds like it's good. Sounds
I mean, there's always exceptions to everything, but I'm just saying, I would say blanketly, pretty much,
okay.
you're going to learn how to play out of tune because you don't have anything to gauge it against. And once you start going up the neck, unless you play an open string against your note,
right, the note falls into an
you
open
can't hear it.
string,
You know
and
what I
then you
mean?
know it.
Especially if you start playing in closed positions. Like let's see, like in C, say. You don't have any open notes there to compare your notes to, so you don't know if you're in tune at
You're
first.
in tune with yourself.
Yeah, I mean, eventually after you learn how to play, you kind of do know. But at first, it's great to have a guitar or a piano or banjo, anything to compare. Banjo's not that good. They don't have that tune.
Very true.
But a mandolin,
Right.
I mean,
That
anything.
is very true. Yes. Speaking from experience.
And you said that before learning those scales, it was so good, or those double stops to match it against another.
Yeah, and see, like him, he didn't even have to play in time
Mm-hmm.
for me to hear it, the notes. I just need something to compare against.
Right.
And you can practice that. I learned that without any guitar player standing around me playing chords, but it just helps, especially when you're starting out, So, it's, I don't know, it's good to play scales and stuff like that because you can start on something and you can start putting your fingers on the thing, but it's probably better to learn tunes.
So when you would teach a student and you were teaching them by ear, say you taught them Cherokee Shuffle, would you teach them like a simple arrangement first and then
Absolutely.
teach them how to embellish it? I mean, how would you
Yeah,
go about
that was a tough thing, actually. I mean, that's something I learned over time to teach them how to advance. You know what I mean? And I found out that you couldn't do it. I mean, I couldn't do it. I couldn't teach that. So what I would have to do is teach them a song that was very basic and stripped down.
Right.
They would learn that melody, and then I'd have to teach them a completely different song with more embellishment so they would learn how to embellish better with technique.
You mean like a different version of the same song or
No,
a different song?
totally different song in order to add those embellishments in there. The
The
reason
more
why...
tunes you learn, the more prospects, the more tools you have in
Yeah,
your
that's
left
what
hand.
I always added things into the next tune, different, like, maybe it was a trill or a double stop or, anything. And then, after they played for a long time, then I would say, play me that one song again. They usually have forgotten, the very first song they ever played. But if I got them to do it, and they did it, it would totally not be anything like how they learned it already, because they already had learned embellishments along in steps. But I found out if I tried to teach them how to embellish that skeleton song,
Right.
the very basic melody, they couldn't get it because in their mind they had practiced the first one so much, and they were just programmed to play that way. So it was a real challenge for them to overcome that. So rather than to stick them with that same song and wear them out for weeks
Right.
on one song, I would just teach them a whole new song.
Give them some variety.
And yeah, that way they know a new song and they've learned new technique. And then later on I go back.
And I imagine when they'd go back to play the original song, they'd remember things from other tunes and incorporate them.
Exactly, without trying.
Without even thinking about it.
Yeah,
Right?
without trying. They would just do it. I mean, they weren't thinking about what they were doing. They weren't saying, I'm going to put this trill here or this double stop here. They would just do it. They would just have it. So, I mean, that's one way to learn some technique too, kind of advances it.
So I asked Jeff this question last night, so I want to see what your answer is.
All right.
So I can hear basic melodies and I can find them on the fiddle. But then it's like, how do I know where I should play slurs and where should I not play slurs? If that question
That's a good question. When I was learning how to play, I had the same thing because I started to become a stick fiddler, when I was young, and every note was... Everything was back and forth. So I tried to figure out... I mean, I didn't know, at that young, where to start. So he had a guy, an old fiddle player that he was playing with, record a few tunes the way he did, and like Red Apple Rag. There was a couple other tunes. It was like the first fiddle tunes I ever learned. It was a real eye-opening experience because he had all these slurs in there. And at first I had to learn the melody, just stick fiddling them, you know. And then I tried to put the slurs in, and they weren't working out because I'd have my slurs and my bows all backward, you know. And by the way, don't pay attention to my bowing at all because I don't bow things
Do as they
correctly.
say, not as they do.
We're watching carefully.
Yeah. So I mean, I really have unorthodox bowing, but as far as learning the slurs, and to answer your question, I think it's just listening. It's once again using that ear and putting them where it makes sense. I mean, if you're having trouble crossing a string, you know, you might want to, you know, just kind of slur some things instead of, like, what I always thought was, if I'm playing a song and I get to this, and I'm playing it at one speed, say, and I get to this little section in the song, and I can't play that up to speed. For some reason, I have to slow down in this one little section all the time. Well, then I've got to figure out a different way to play that. Maybe I still need the same notes because it's all melody. So I got to figure out a different way to play it. So what I'll try to do is slur, or I might try to add a double stop so it doesn't create such a awkward sounding crossover from one string to the next. I'll just play it as a double stop and then lead off of it, and I'll be there. Whatever it takes to make it. Playing fiddle, once you get the notes down to a song, it should be easy. You know, I mean, it should be easy. If it's hard, it's for a couple of reasons, because you're doing it wrong, or you know, you just maybe not advanced enough to do that particular song. But so as far as the slurs, man, I don't know what to tell you.
Sounds like it's just kind of a lot of experimentation.
Yeah, exactly. It really is. I mean, that's how. That's
So
so.
Red Apple Rag's a good example because you can get really stick fiddly on that song.
Yeah. Well,
But if you slur it all, it smooths it out, and that's the way you want to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some guys. I mean, I don't even know this guy's name. He used to play with Monroe. He's just this young kid and always wore that cowboy hat. And
Bobby Joe.
whoever, I don't know who he was, but it always amazed me watching him on like old films and stuff like that. And he would play like. It was amazing. His bow would be moving like this, and he'd be playing 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You know, it just blew my mind because
Dozens of notes on one
yeah,
bow.
it was crazy. You know, and then you get other guys like, I don't know, get a guy like Mark O'Connor or something like that, and he does that bouncing thing where he's playing, 5 million notes. I mean, way faster than humanly possible. And but
all
he's
clean,
doing them all
like
back and
classical
forth,
notes.
just getting that staccato bounce, the bounce in the bow there to do them. And I do that sometimes if I'm going really fast, but it's on accident. I'm not very good at that staccato bowing. But so it's hard to say what's the way to do it. I would say it's the way to do it is the way that makes the most sense. And
Sometimes you want to be musical.
Personally,
musical
yeah.
too,
Sure.
Yeah, personally, I like to
Sounds
do it
good.
to where I'm not doing one thing in particular for too much amount of time. Even my licks, I won't play the same notes over and over and over too many times. I'll try not to. I mean, that's what I try to do. And then I might not try to slur too many things in a row before breaking it back up again, so it doesn't sound monotonous. I really like to try to change things around instead of developing that stagnant pattern. But like Red Apple Rag, you remember that one at all? That's it. I don't even know if I can even play this song, man. It's been a long time since I've done that.
See?
Mm-hmm. I think so. Let's see. Oh, that's Billy in the Low Grade.
Yeah.
That's in G.
Yeah.
See, I'm searching way back here.
Sounds like everybody's Irish.
All right.
up the A.
Yeah. Anyways, that kind of gives you an idea. I mean, just learn some stuff. And
Now, in some songs, a song with words, the words can dictate the slurs, right?
Yeah,
Somewhat.
They can, depending on. For me, it depends on the energy of the song. If it's a really kind of a simple song, I got to try to put some more stuff in there. Make it different, add some energy to the breaks, make them distinguishable from the singing to the breaks. Not trying to hot rod it up, but just trying to, creatively make it stronger through the instrumental section. If it's an advanced melody, sometimes you just want to play just a melody. You know what I mean? It's hard to tell. That's probably my biggest pet peeve as a musician, is playing with other musicians that never play melody. And I'm notoriously not totally a melody guy. You know what I mean? But I guess what I mean is some guys, when they improvise, and they're just doodling, they're just playing stuff, and it has nothing to do with anything. I mean, it's just scales up and down, and just stuff. And it's not has nothing to do with the song. Although they're playing all notes that fit in that key and timing and all that stuff, even though all that's there, it's not making the song any better. It's actually taken away from it, in my opinion, and probably in a lot of people's opinion, if you ask me. But you can still play outside the lines as far as melody goes and stuff like that, and make it interesting and make people think that you're kind of playing the melody, depending on how you phrase things.
I think you hear that in a lot of the jams when it comes around, and if it's you, I'm putting every note in that I can.
Yeah, it's like a big contest, man.
Right.
It's like that always happens, especially at the front of the jam, where everybody wants to establish dominance. It reminds me of a wolf pack, and everybody's trying to outdo each other. And after the first 3 or 4 songs, then it kind of seems to calm down.
Yeah, it's like I ain't touching that.
Yeah. But I don't know. That's just personal opinion. That's not law by any means.
Question: How do you learn vibrato? Because I feel like
I knew somebody was going to ask that question.
I feel like I have a 2x4 wrist. It just feels so.
If you watch me play vibrato, it's totally the wrong way to do it. I play it, but it's not right. I mean, basically, what you're supposed to do is to get the very tip of your pads of your fingers to move back and forth without doing what my hand's doing right now, which is moving back and forth. I mean, they can do it like this, they get that whole, the classical people, I guess is what I'm saying. But I have a really weird style of playing vibrato, I think. See, I still get that vibrato sound, not classically. I don't like the classical way anyways for bluegrass. So I'm getting a little vibrato, as much as I personally want in that note, but my hand isn't doing it right. You know what I mean? I mean, that you're never supposed to rest the back of the fiddle neck on your palm like that, and that's what I do. But that's how I get my vibrato. But if you can learn it the right way, I'm sure it would be good. But I'm like you, my wrist is really stiff. And for me to learn it like that, I'm just going to choke on the note. It's not going to sound good. So
more experimentation.
Yeah, just make sure. A lot of people. And I know you wouldn't do this, but a lot of people, starting out will actually try to bend the note back and forth or slide. And neither way of those is any way to get vibrato. I mean, you basically want to have some kind of rolling of the pad of your finger. So however you figure out how to do that, that's the way to do it. You know what I mean? But just make sure you're not sliding back and forth, because that's not right.
Or bending the string.
Or some guys actually try to bend the string. It's weird. But
and don't you too? Do you only go from the pitch above? You don't go both ways, right? It gets seesawy.
I've never thought about it like that. I think I probably do go both ways.
Do you go both ways?
Maybe not. Let's see.
I think you're overlapping both sides of it.
Yeah, I think I am.
I mean, that's pretty hard to regulate, right?
Yeah, it is for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not probably the right person to ask that question to. I mean, that's how I do it. But I'm sure somebody's better at that than I am. You know, I just have adapted my way of doing it over the years. You know, and nothing I say is gospel. You know, I mean, it's just how I've figured out how to do it, how it works for me. You know, you got to figure out your own way.
You know, thinking about slides, all fiddle players play slides, but the good ones like you do down slides too, not just the up slides into the notes. Do you have any tips on developing that?
Yeah, I do actually. It's something I kind of discovered about myself, listening back to myself sliding, either up or down. I mean, I never really thought about it like that, but I noticed the way that it makes you sound amateur as a fiddle player. In my opinion, to me, I sounded amateur by sliding really slowly. And so what I actually try to do when I slide is make the note sound like two notes with one finger. So instead of getting the, you know, instead of getting that weak, to me that's kind of weak sounding. Instead of doing that, instead of doing like a long slide, I have to try to practice to do that. It depends on the song too. I mean, if you're playing a blues song or something, you want long slides, you know. Or if you're playing like an Irish, you might want to do that on purpose. But I guess the way I try to do my slides is a quick slide, make it sound like two notes with one finger. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I had a bunch of slides in there, you know, but it's really quick, subtle things. It's not too long and drawn out.
It's not as distinct as a hammer-on.
Right. I don't know. Does that answer your question? At least from my vantage point, it's kind of hard to explain that too. That's like the vibrato thing. I noticed a lot of amateur players will play long slides. Like, I'm trying to think of a good way to explain that. Let's see. I can't even hardly do it, man. I'm trying to. I don't know.
Or you did there, you slid up and then down.
Yeah, right. That's like a triplet.
Yeah.
That's what I do with that. That's like a triplet. But it's all one finger. It's three notes. You know? I might put a little trio there behind it to take away from, you know, being... I just try not to be too old-timey sounding, you know? Unless I'm playing an old-timey song, you know?
You did that recording with the slipstream guys.
Yeah.
That is so cool. And there you did do a lot of old-timey sound because that's kind of their thing.
That's kind of the vibe that they had going on, you know.
But I thought what you did added so much to that album, and that what he was talking about doing, getting a little ahead of the beat or behind the beat. You did a lot of that on there. That's a great.
Thanks, man. I really like playing with the timing. To me, that's the fun thing. I mean, I've learned how to play now. You know, I feel like I've got the basics down. So it's like the next challenge for me is just playing with the timing all the time, just constantly keeping it interesting for myself as a player, because you know how it is, man. You play the same licks over and over, and you start to get burned out. Mm-hmm. You know, so you gotta push yourself. You know, and I'll go through stages even now. Like I just feel like I came off of a big long plateau, you know, as far as playing ability, because it was like, man, I just noticed I kept doing the same licks over and over, and I was sick of them, but I couldn't figure out anything else to do, you know. But it's like a fever that breaks all of a sudden. You just, you know, you're sick for a while, and then you get better, you know, and then you can play good again. And I constantly go through those stages. I mean, they can last a week, or it can last 2 months, you know. It's weird. That's what happens. Just, you know, it's natural. Any other questions?
What's Nashville like?
It's nice and warm right there right now. It's not humid yet, is it? It's not really that humid.
Fixing that though.
It's a great place to live for music. And there's something going on all the time. If you wanted to, you could be in a jam session every single night. And I was for like the first couple months that I lived there, and then I just decided I had to cut out of that. A lot of great music, a lot of great talented musicians there. Well, y'all didn't even play anything, and you brought your fiddles. Let's hear something. What tune could we all play together, man? Something easy.
Yeah,
Please.
Something simple. You know some songs, maybe?
Yeah.
What you know?
Whole Pack, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Part of Dragon Hunter, part of Sailor Sun, and some of
part of.
Hiawatha. And
I've never heard of any of those songs. Except for Twinkle Little Star.
Yeah, that's another.
We can play Twinkle Little Star. Put a bunch of doubles. Do you want to try it? Let's play it. And
is it on the D string or A string?
wherever you, probably the A string. That'd be right there, right? Okay. Let's try it. I'm interested to see what you sound like, and then we'll take turns on it. All right?
Who wants to go first?
You want to go first.
You start.
You kick it off. How long have you been playing?
9 months.
9 months. Wow. So you all self-taught, or are you taking lessons?
I had school lessons.
Oh, you at school? Okay.
And she's used to the tape.
Have you always played on that size fiddle?
She's actually never played that one before.
Yeah,
Did you play on a smaller fiddle before this one?
Before I went to Orchard Mesa, I played a half size, and then I went up to a 3 1/4 and a full size. Those two.
And then how long have you had this one?
It's not mine. It's my grandma's.
Oh, you borrowed it?
All right.
So what size do you play now?
She has played on a full size.
On a full size?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Have you ever tried using the tape
Yeah,
to show
we
you where the
have.
notes
That's
are?
what she's used to.
I bet that is.
Uh-huh.
Because you kind of watch your fingers when you play. I can see you doing that. So, yeah. And every fiddle's different too, man. Some fingerboards are longer than others. You know, they really are. And trying to play different fiddles for me is a nightmare because I get really used to playing in one certain spot. You know, as far as the notes go, being in tune and stuff. You can change around a little bit, play different fiddles. This sounds good. You got a good start on it.
Get their timing down good.
Yeah, the timing's great.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, all you really got to do is just listen to pitch and your timing at first, you know, and get that down. So, good job.
Yeah, I guess that was the question earlier. I mean, that pitch, you got to discipline yourself. And like you say, you got to compare it to something. You just can't go on.
Yeah,
Well,
with
it's
it.
hard going from, I know this from experience, but it's hard going
He taught
from
me
a
how
half
to play the
size
fiddle.
to a 3/4 size and then jumping to a full
Uh-huh.
size because all of the scales are different. now. And the length and the distance between the notes are further now.
So you have to stretch
And
a little
so
bit farther.
that's why I asked the question, because I can see that she's used to a shorter scale right now. And she'll get this one too, which is like maybe
just
put some
stretch it a
tape
little
on
bit
it for a
farther.
while so she can get a good feel of where that note is supposed to be.
That third finger to stretch out like that, that's a tough one for everybody,
Yeah.
especially younger, because your hands are so much smaller.
Especially like in a B flat key.
Yeah.
We did B flat and whole patch.
That's tough for us guys.
But that, the best thing that... Are you her dad?
No, I'm her grandfather.
You're her
actually.
grandpa, okay. And are you around her a lot? Are you
Well, we
together?
actually have not played a couple times together.
A couple times?
We were playing this morning a little bit together.
I was just thinking,
trying to
if
do a
somebody
duet,
that was
trying to-
related to you could, like, learn how to play a chord, even, just one chord, or they don't. I mean, if they could learn how to play in all the chords and in time, that'd be great. You know, but if she could have something to compare that against.
Yeah, I've played guitar about 20
Yeah,
years. I
okay.
understand that instrument.
Yeah, right.
So
if you-
it's a lot of that.
If you do just
lot
what
of
he
it.
did, just playing back and then kind of pushing her to maybe reach a little higher for some.
Yeah, to be able to tell if I go to a D and she is way off pitch, then it's obvious.
And then what you
More
can do is stop on those notes, and don't worry so much about playing the song from start to finish without messing up. Worry more about getting the right note. And if you have to stop in the middle of the song, it's not a bad thing. I mean, you got all day, to play it. So I mean, we know you can play the song, because I heard you do all the notes are right. I mean, you're moving the right fingers and you're playing on the right strings. The only thing you might need to work on a little bit is just stretching a little bit farther for some of them higher notes. And the way you do that is if you're playing the guitar next to what she's doing, and if it's flat or if it doesn't sound right, and you can't maybe tell whether it's flat or sharp, let's stop on that note. Let's figure out where that note is. Play that, reach a little bit higher until you get it, and then go, okay, now.
Yeah.
Remember that feeling of how your hand feels when you're stretched out that far. Just little things like that helps, especially starting out at that age. And then, because the sooner you get on pitch now, the better off you'll be later on.
Right.
So, but that's great. That's a really good start. I never heard of them other songs. Welcome to the show.
Hey.
So maybe we can. Do you play too?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
She plays.
She plays.
She plays.
She plays.
Great. Well, maybe we could all play one together. You and I and you. That'd be cool. What songs do you know?
I know Whiskey Before Breakfast.
Whiskey Before Breakfast?
Yeah.
That'd be a good one. Let's do that. You know that song?
Kind of.
Okay. Let's try that. You do that in D?
I do that in A.
In A?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Hey. Play a little bit of it.
Keep going.
Yeah, go ahead. job. Good playing. Well, does anybody have any last questions before we quit? Good. I answered everything. All right.
Why don't you go two play one more?
Yeah.
For us.
Oh shoot. What else could we play? We'll play Whiskey for Angelina Baker, maybe.
Yeah, that's good. Play that one.
All right, let's see.
Nobody else played like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's Angelina Baker.
Very nice.
Jeremy's version.
My version. Yeah.
We have that in quarter notes, huh?
Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah,
All right,
good-
thank you.
Hope it was helpful.
It's great.
Good job, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Well,